Frank J. Avella here with Awards Daily. Belfast is Kenneth Branagh's stunning cinematic memoir set in the summer of 1969 in that tumultuous titular city. Among the superb ensemble, Jamie Dornan's quiet yet powerful Pa. Hi, Jamie, and congratulations on sublime work.
Thanks, Frank. Very happy to be here.
I love how internalized and nuanced this performance is. There's such a calm to Pa, yet underneath that calm, there's so much more. Was that approach something you discussed with Ken?
Yeah, to an extent, Ken was amazing about just trusting instinctually what I wanted to do with him and what Katrina wanted to do with Ma and all of us really, and giving us that freedom and trust and confidence to sort of play it how we wanted to. I'm playing his father. Uh, there, he was always very clear that I wasn't playing some like carbon copy idea of who his dad was. He always was like, I want you to bring your own energy to it. Um, and so much on the page um, was sort of internalized with Pa. He is sort of there's flash moments, but for the most part, he's sort of in turmoil about what it is he has to decisions he has to make for this family. Which are huge and will affect this family for the rest of time by pulling them away from the only place they know. So he's constantly sort of dealing with that and the sort of stress of that. And then there's moments where the release comes and it maybe comes with an argument with his wife or on the phone with an argument or when she's throwing plates at him and they're having it all out, or it's in the pub or he's telling a joke or he's singing at his own father's wake. There are these release moments where he does just get to let it out. But I think for the most part, there is an internal turmoil that's going on that I thought was really important to convey.
Well, I watched it a third time over the weekend, and it struck me that he could almost be seen as the voice of Irish history. Especially in the scene with Ma, where he says the boys are suffering and they don't have until Easter. There's
Mm.
just something about that just really, really resonated in that way.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of it's there's so much truth in that, and there's so much sort of forecasting of what was to come. With the benefit of writing the script 50 years after the events, you can place a bit of that in. Not that Pa knew that conflict would go on for 30 years, but there was a sense that there was something bigger at play here, and this is a guy who'd been in Belfast his whole life, and things were different. Things were escalating in a way that he didn't recognize from before, and sort of maybe been able to sort of quietly express that and needing to use that to convince Ma, who needed convincing. It wasn't like, I think we should leave, and she's like, yeah, great, let's pack the bags. It was a lot of trying to get her to the point where she felt that it was the right thing for the safety of the family. So there's lots of moments like that, I think, where there's sort of he needed that strength to sort of convey what was maybe ahead of them, and it wasn't good.
It's interesting here in the States where we're taught mostly about U.S. history.
Mm.
I get so much. I'm going through a Ken Loach period,
Yep.
and I just finished Wind That Shakes the Barley, which was absolutely stunning. Now you're from Belfast.
Yep.
I'm wondering, what were you taught about the situation growing up?
Yeah, which this is where it gets very complicated, Frank, because Northern Ireland is a very interesting, complicated part of the world. You have a country that this year turns 101. It was centenary last year. Uh, can you look back on 100 years of a country's existence and say it worked? Not really, when it was at war with each other for 30 years. So it hasn't been some monumental success story. What is strange about it is that like you get a lot of people there who consider themselves British or part of the United Kingdom, and then there's a big section who consider themselves Irish. With the schooling being integrated, which is not being integrated, I'm a big advocate of integrating the schools, because if you don't integrate the schools, these kids grow up with this inbuilt division that there should be separation with Catholic kids and Protestant kids. Um, as a result of the schools not being integrated, you get different educations. So the Catholic school kids are taught more about Irish history, and the Protestant kids are taught more about British history. So you're there in Ireland being taught about Henry the Eighth and all his wives, which has very little impact on where you live. You know what I mean? It's very, very
Yeah.
strange. So I did go to a Protestant primary school, but luckily an integrated secondary school. But there's not many of them. In fact, in Northern Ireland, only less than 5% of schools are integrated at primary school level. Age
Wow.
4 to 10. It's insane. So yeah, it's an interesting question because it unearths all of this sort of madness of how that place is even today. But Irish history and the reasons that we got to that place in 1969 where it kicked off, it's not taught enough. I think people don't have enough of an understanding of it from a young age.
What does Belfast mean to you? And tell me about getting that text from Ken.
Yeah, Belfast means everything. You're some people can be negative about where they came from, and look, it's slightly conflicting for me because I left there. I left there 20 years ago, um, but I will always call it home, no matter where I live and no matter how long for. That is the place that, as we say, I was born, bred, and buttered in that place, and those people shaped me, and I love them for that, and always will. Um, I always want people from Belfast to be understood better than we are. I've spent the last 20 years traveling around trying to explain to people that Belfast is filled with really great, fun-loving, resilient, interesting, funny people, and it's not just like a war zone. And so a lot of people really struggle to get their head around that, which saddens me. And I'm going to try to continue the rest of my life convincing people this film will help, because we see it through the eyes of normal family, and through the lens of a 9-year-old boy, and it humanizes people from home more, which I think is really important, from the outside looking in. Uh, but it means everything to me, and I actually feel like if I was 19 again, uh, I wouldn't have as much reason to leave Belfast now, because it's changed so much there. The idea of doing something in a creative industry and staying in Belfast is more of a reality now. It wasn't 20 years ago. You felt like you had to go to the bright lights of London to sort of, make your name or whatever. But now, because of, I mean, Game of Thrones and a show I was in called The Fall, and
Mhm.
a lot of like highbrow, big budget television shoots there now. And it's way more of an argument for sticking around there.
Um, it's such a joyous film, as well as being serious. And you get to what I love so much about it is you really feel this family connection. First
Yeah.
of all, you and Katrina, she's just luminous, by the way, and
Oh,
the connection between the two of you is extraordinary. But I really felt this familial bond. It was wonderful.
yeah. Listen, I think, what's that down to? I mean, much of it is Ken's eye and connecting the people he felt would make sense, and so he's got to take credit there. But also, a lot of it's down to luck and the right personalities working and merging together. I think much of it is down to. We'll excuse Dame Judy Dench for being the only non-Irish member of the family in real life. Um, but having us all be from the same land and having that shorthand with each other and that understanding of each other, and probably similar souls as a result of being from that place and having experienced similar things growing up, that all helps to form this sort of cohesive idea that we all have a common ground with each other. Ken also did a very clever thing of, when we were rehearsing, he had all the grown ups, which is Judy, Kieran, myself, and Katrina, sit round a table together for a couple of days and just talk, and like really talk, and but get into it. And he'd ask us these questions about our own families and our own childhoods and how our parents would have reacted if this thing happened in our lives. And we all were suddenly just opening ourselves up to each other. Bearing in mind, I met Katrina very briefly socially, or at TIFF one year of different films. I'd met Kieran socially. I'd never met Judi Dench. She came in wearing a tiger face mask with like a growling tiger. It was just the most, you know, I don't know, as soon as you saw it, you sort of, put down your weapons. It was like, totally disarming situation. But we were all like so open with each other and vulnerable with each other and exposing, and we were crying, and I mean it was just incredible within an hour of meeting each other. So I think that was a very clever thing that Ken did of opening us all up, and I really did, particularly by the end. We really did feel like this real sort of family. Every movie you do, you feel you have this odd sort of family feeling by the end of it, this sort of misshapen family. But particularly at Belfast, we felt super tight.
Well, the diff is that it doesn't always come across so extraordinary as it does on the screen.
Sure.
Uh, since we last spoke, I finished The Fall in its entirety, and Jesus, wow, what a bold, ballsy piece. And I wondered about your process and whether you were an immersive actor who brought a character home with you, or whether that depended on the role.
Dangerous to do it with The Fall. I think the reality is with The Fall first series, we were running up to getting married, so these big life things were happening. Second series, we just had our first baby. Third series, I think we were about to have our second baby. These big, like, very real family things were happening. You don't want to bring serial killer energy back into the house when all these very sort of normal things are happening. Look, I have to say, Frank, like, I'm someone who can just leave it behind. I've always been like that. I haven't worked with many, if any, people who aren't the same, I have to say, and it's very refreshing when you can work with the likes of Judi Dench and her be in the middle of some like brilliant story right up until they call turnover, and then she'll pause it for a second, jump straight into whoever she needs to be. As soon as the cold cut, she's back into finishing off her story. I mean, I love that. And to see someone who's that brilliant for that long doing it that way makes you, because sometimes I think you can work with actors who seem to have, particularly early on in my career, seem to have had more of a method, let's say, and you're watching them and they're making funny noises and they're jumping about and you're going, oh god, sorry, am I meant to be doing that? But like, if that isn't what works for you, or isn't what you feel you need to bring out whatever it is you're trying to express, then you shouldn't be swayed by that. You should just stick to what it is works for you. And for most people, that is, the more relaxed you are, the better you're going to be, I find. And that's what I find. And on Belfast, that's what it was. We were all just having fun. So then when the cameras rolled, we felt like we were just relaxed as a family together.
Can you shed any new light on the film you wrote with Connor McNeil?
I will say that I think, have just, finished what is hopefully our final draft. When I think back to how naive we were, in the end of summer 2020, just before I started shooting this, that like we'd finished we'd finished writing it, and then you realize, once we've got, all will be revealed at some point, but we have like incredibly exciting producers on board with it. They have a lot of notes. It gets to the point where you're like, whoa, we're still writing this a year and a half on. But literally the day I'm in LA, the day before I got in the plane to LA, Connor and I were writing right up until the final. I was like, dude, I've got to go and pack, trying to get this final draft. So yeah, hopefully that becomes a bit more active this year, or certainly next year. But yeah, I will say it's set in Belfast, but very different story to Ken's story. But yeah, hopefully we get to take that to the screen sometime soon.
And the thing that I'm sure everybody's asked you about, of course, is the singing. It's a great scene. It's a great release, I think, for everyone. It's so powerful. I think it's something we all needed at the end there. I don't have any, new question to ask you, except that I'm curious, did that scene come near the end of the shoot? And was it cathartic for you as well?
Yeah, it sort of, I actually think it was kind of right in the middle, oddly. But we had just gone from, we were the first out of the blocks during COVID in the UK. I think Batman started shooting around the same time, or started picking up shooting again around the same time because they'd shut down because of COVID. But we'd done a lot of scenes, just the family, and just like Katrina and I and the kids in a room, or just like the whole family in a small room. So then suddenly it was just like all the smaller players and people who are only doing a day or two here, all of us in a room together. It did feel like this sort of special release, and it does come at a time in the movie where, as you say, you want it as an audience member, and I hope it's fun and it's a release and it's joyous, but there's also so much going on, and there's so much going on in Ma and Pa's relationship there, and it was that thing of like, as much as you're having a big song and dance number, you're also just buried your father, um, but also you're at a very critical point in their relationship where it's probably as it's pretty fractured at that point with Ma and Pa. It's about as bad as it can get, and then through a song, you're able to portray it's all right. I love you. That's not changing, and that is there's a love that will be everlasting. I've got your back. We are going through all this hardship, but I understand you. So there's a massive performative aspect of it beyond just getting up and singing and dancing. And I felt like I loved that aspect of it. I was getting so much back from Katrina that day, and it was a special. It was a day I will never forget.
And Jamie, watching it now, I mean, you kind of have a personal, connection, especially with, moments like that because of your loss.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, I know what that's like too. That's got to be, I mean, that's something that's there forever. Um,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. And yeah, it really is forever. And there'll be times when, you think you're in a good place with it all, and then something like a song maybe just kicks you right back down. So it's that has even more sort of resonance for me now when I see that scene, or if we're waiting in the wings about to do a Q&A and that song's on because it's close to the end of the movie, and it affects me probably in a different way because of everything that's happened. But also there's a sort of beauty in that too, I guess.
yeah. What can you tell us about The Tourist?
It's absolutely bonkers. Uh, Thankfully has gone down unbelievably well in the UK. The response has been insane. Uh, it's been such a joy because that was such a hard shoot for me, personal reasons. I lost my dad literally at the beginning of it when I was still in hotel quarantine when he died in Australia, unable to get home, and then
Oh,
had 5 months out there doing one of the most all-encompassing roles of my life. So for it to have been received critically the way it has in the UK, and the figures, everything about it has been so positive that it just makes it all the more worthwhile. It is a mad story. It is a thriller like you've never seen before. It merges so many different genres. Just when you think you understand what is happening in the story, you're totally sidebarred. You will never get comfortable with your knowledge of what's happening because you're wrong, probably. I think it's the sort of thing you'll watch. If you watch again, you'll realize you missed a ton of stuff. It's just really fun. It's properly entertaining, and yeah, you'll have a good fun 6 hours if you're willing to commit.
oh, well, I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. Listen, I am really, really grateful to have this opportunity to speak with you. I know we're in awards season, and Belfast has a lot of awards buzz. I'm not going to jinx anything here. I'm really excited for you, and I just want to tell you that I think this is, with the fall notwithstanding, I think this is one of your best performances, and really congratulations.
Thanks, Frank. I appreciate that, man. Cheers.
Thank you, Jamie. Thanks for spending some time with us.
All right, Frank. All the best, man.
Ciao.
See you. Bye, bye, bye.